Wow. Jim Lampley begins to compare Floyd Money Mayweather to Donald Trump and somehow, some way blames easy work, I ain't gotta worry about it, Floyd Mayweather for the Trump presidency. He says something like Trump learned from Floyd. This is extremely weird stuff, but I gotta talk about it on the channel. Stay tuned. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Listen, if you love what I'm doing, smash the like button. And also, very important, hit the subscribe button. I drop daily content. This is what's in it for you. Listen up. I drop daily content, all things boxing. The latest and greatest. Let you know what type of fighter shape that they're in ahead of their big fights. You know, news, pre and post fight breakdowns, and much more. We have a great time. All boxing, the sweet science, some UFC. And make sure you guys subscribe, hit the bell notification icon for the latest and greatest in boxing. Now, I gotta tell this story, and I have to quote it directly because it's so strange and peculiar that I don't want to misquote it. But before I get into the actual quote where Jim Lampley, who's coming back to the boxing game, somehow tried to compare Money Mayweather to Donald Trump, I gotta first state this. So in case you live under a rock or you don't follow the channel or follow boxing intently, Jim Lampley, who used to work with HBO for a number of years, he's coming back to the sport of boxing by way of TRILLER. TRILLER is an app. They have different things, like they just got the Ice Cube, the Big Three basketball tournament. TRILLER has versus battles, real popular in the music industry. And then they have some boxing, like Teofimo Lopez. He fought with his actual promoter, Top Rank, went to a purse bid. He wanted more money. TRILLER bought the fight and paid a lot more than the fight's probably worth. But nonetheless, Snoop Dogg, he has a show. It's called Fight Club. Fight Camp, I think it's Fight Club, right? And they run some boxing, or they're getting into it, or trying to get into the sports side of things. Now, it was just stated that Jim Lampley is coming back, who again worked with HBO for a number of years before HBO pulled the plug and decided like boxing was no longer their forte. They said something to the effect of, people who purchase HBO subscriptions, they're not really interested in boxing. Like that's the least known reason. They did surveys or whatever, and that's the least known reason for them to actually subscribe. So they felt from their analytics and their data, people were subscribing for, like, only a small percentage were subscribing exclusively as boxing fans, and people were subscribing for the great original programming, specials, you know, shows like The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, Game of Thrones, and that. So they cut their boxing programming, and Jim Lampley, to my knowledge, has been without a job, kind of on the sidelines, you know, unless he does Uber or Lyft or something on the side, DoorDash. He hasn't really been, to my knowledge, covering fights and doing commentary. Now, if you remember Jim Lampley from the HBO days, very biased, especially towards the end. He had a thing called the Gotti list, where he would praise a bunch of fighters that oftentimes had no defense, and it was supposed to be some ode or homage to Arturo Gotti, rest in peace, a fallen soldier in the boxing fraternity. And he would frequently bash fighters like Floyd Mayweather and guys who were skillful. He also had all-out tirades and rants on PBC, which was kind of a new thing. Al Heyman, a black advisor from Cleveland, also the advisor of Floyd Mayweather. Al Heyman was working with HBO, and it got to a point where he decided to bring fights to network TV. The HBO situation came to a halt, and Al Heyman took his fighters off of HBO. So it became this ongoing battle, and Jim Lampley was constantly just denigrating the PBC, oftentimes black fighters, oftentimes fighters like Floyd, guys who, you know, didn't entertain enough or go for broke enough, even when they were winning fights and dominating, such as Floyd Mayweather. And long story short, he's coming back to boxing as commentary. I wasn't, for one, excited. Old media was all excited. I didn't make no videos about it because there was far more pressing news that was more interesting that I felt the fans would be more interested in. And then, which brings us to the title of the video. That initial feeling that I had when they said, oh, Jim Lampley's coming back, I'm like, oh, bro, because I knew it was just old media, and the last memories I have of Jim Lampley calling fights was old media mumbo jumbo, and a bunch of nonsense, and the Gotti list, and he even did an anti-Gotti list, and he would put fighters like Floyd Mayweather on there, Andre Ward, and Demetrius Andrade, conveniently a bunch of slicker fighters or black or Afro-Cuban fighters and stuff like that, and just try to find a way to insult their high-level thinking, their skills, them for using lateral movement, and not being more like Glenn Tapia, who's willing to go for it all, or Ruslan Provodnikov, or not exciting enough like Triple G. So I, for one, wasn't excited. But now he has some recent quotes, and you guys will be able to see why I wasn't excited that he was returning to call fights. So Lance Pugmire of The Athletic verified page, he is quoting Lampley as saying, quote, "He will observe, educate himself, and then launch into action decisively. As he gained experience as a fighter, he saw how fighters are marketed. Since then, there's been a consistent, decisive approach to how he manages his image, and he's never looked back." So Floyd's fighting Logan Paul. He's 44 years of age. Floyd had an illustrious career, 20 plus years in the sport of boxing. He dedicated his whole life from childhood to 40s into the sport of boxing with very minimal breaks or absences. Like, he wasn't injured so much to the point where he had long gaps or disappeared. There were probably once or twice where he retired for a number of months, 21 months after I think it was the Ricky Hatton fight, before the Juan Manuel Marquez fight. Then he retired after the Berto fight for a bit, and then he came back and fought Conor McGregor for the 50th, stuff like that. But for the most part, Floyd has been a model citizen, a model boxer. He's inspired so much of the youth to box, and he put over $1 billion in his bank account and over $1 billion in boxing's bank account. But yet and still, Jim Lampley is throwing darts and constantly berating Floyd and acting like Floyd is all of what's wrong with boxing. And it looks like some things never change. Now, this is, in fact, probably the most bizarre quote in boxing that I can think of. So if this is a preview of what we're going to expect, I don't know if Snoop Dogg is still on the show. To my knowledge, it's Snoop Dogg Fight Club. But I'm not looking forward to Teofimo's fight with Jim Lampley calling it. Combination of Snoop Dogg and Jim Lampley is just really a contrast to styles. The earlier Trillers, they were a little bit heavy on the music. This doesn't seem like it would be Jim Lampley's environment. So Triller's gonna have to change the whole thing, because they had people like Snoop Dogg, Too Short, Ice Cube, and E40 on the last Triller, and musical performances by Sweetie, and who knows who's gonna be on this George Camboso's Teofimo one. But let's get into the Jim Lampley quote. I really don't see how he fits in here, especially with what Triller has been doing, unless they switch their whole image, which is weird to 3 episodes in of this boxing stuff, and then now you're going to be a straight and arrow when you just had Oscar De La Hoya, who was hooting and hollering and clearly inebriated or under the influence of something, yelling on the telecast. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that situation. But let's get into the quote. Jim Lampley on Floyd Mayweather. This is a direct quote. He says, "I would go so far to say that if you do not have Mayweather and the success that he created for himself in this arena, then you might not have seen Donald Trump." Like, yes, this is Jim Lampley's commentary. So we went from the Gotti list to the anti-Gotti list to the anti-PBC agenda, and now he's comparing Floyd Mayweather to Donald Trump, or saying Floyd's origin created some kind of pathway or segue for Donald Trump's presidency. So let me start over. I would go so far to say that if you did not have Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather, and the success that he created for himself in this arena, you might not have seen Donald Trump. Trump was in the boxing world. He took some of his lessons from Mayweather. Now, this is by far one of the most peculiar, borderline bipolar oddities from any quote from anybody in boxing that I've heard. So I'm definitely not excited for the return of Jim Lampley, me personally. This makes very little sense to try to somehow, some way, find a way to compare Floyd Mayweather to Donald Trump in his presidency. Like, what did Floyd do in his boxing career that would make you make that parallel or that comparison? It is beyond me. I'm really curious what the people are saying. Okay, someone said the man has lost the plot. Don't see the connection exactly. One is self-made legend, the other is what? See, shout out to Heyman's Planet. See, that's a good point. Donald Trump inherited $1 million from his rich family. Floyd Mayweather's dad was in the penitentiary, and his family was from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So just like Heyman's Planet is saying, there's no real connection to their origins. So I don't get it. It says starting to think Floyd was right about Lampley being against him. LOL. And he said starting, you should have been thought that. That's why Floyd went in on Larry Merchant too. HBO need to fire you. You don't know shit about boxing. Because they had the same demeanor. Lance, did you ask to edit out the part of the interview? What an incomprehensible statement. You know, and they're showing a picture of Floyd with Trump. Mike Tyson had much more to do with the ascension of Trump than Mayweather ever did. They got Trump dancing. I don't particularly agree with that take, but it's clear that most of the reactions are more emotional than anything. I'm guessing this is Lampley's audition for TRILLER. He plans to outdo De La Hoya's performance. See, there's no good comments. They both share, they can't read. He really is back. See, I mean, it's just, Jim is comparing Floyd to Trump. Wow. And then some idiot says, well, so just because you take a picture with something means you created that person. So if that's the case, Jeff Epstein has a lot of celebrities in his black book. A lot of people, a lot of famous celebrities rode on Jeff Epstein's plane. Like, some people are truly idiotic in this online world. And that's the danger with anything online, is there's no like Carfax report. So you don't even know who you're dealing with. You don't know what the person's history is, if they're smart, if they're crazy, if they're experts on this field, and there's no accountability. People say whatever. So now we're going to say if you take a picture with somebody, then somehow you created that monster. So think about all the people that have pictures with Chris Benoit or somebody, you know, Aaron Hernandez. So that means you are an enabler, or just because you have a picture. Hold on. I'm pretty sure. Let's do a quick check. So one of the GOATs of football. Boom. So there's Tom Brady and Aaron Hernandez. So because they have a picture together, somehow, some way, that connects them. And that means the GOAT of football, quarterbacks, somehow, some way, because he was on the same team, or he could be seen in pictures with him, who later did heinous crimes, you know? Somehow he's connected to that. That doesn't make sense. Look, Tim Tebow was around in the college years around him as well. So, you know, this is just bizarre. This bizarre energy from people, right? I don't see a correlation at all. I don't see how Floyd Mayweather in any way is connected to Donald Trump, Donald Trump's presidency. What did Floyd do in his body? It's just such a bizarre, y'all know it, you know, it's just such a bizarre quote, you know, saying that Donald Trump became president because of what Floyd did in the ring. You know, Donald Trump did his own thing. He had The Apprentice, and, you know, he had his own businesses and hotels and buildings and things like that. I really don't see, other than the two guys are quote unquote celebrities and have made millions, I really don't see the comparison, or how Jim Lampley is trying to connect the dots, if you will, or pin the tail on the donkey. So more bias from Jim Lampley. It's apparent why he's been out the mix. I really don't see how he's going to mesh well with the whole Triller audience, based on it looks like they've been running and promoting their shows catering to a younger audience, almost like a urban hip hop kind of contemporary audience. I really don't feel Jim Lampley fits in. And with statements like that are totally bizarre, it's harder for me to see the reality. If you're somehow connecting, saying Trump became president because of a boxer with no real explanation, you know, it's going to be hard for me to stomach the commentary. So I might have to watch or not watch some of the Triller events, or maybe watch it on mute. Let me know what you guys think. If you can somehow tell me what the parallel is between Floyd Money Mayweather, easy work. Like I said, he's a young, hungry lion, you know, and Donald Trump. Please let me know, because I've been scratching my head since I made this video, you know, up until the point I just hit the record button, trying to figure this out, how Trump presidency is the responsibility and or was somehow prompted by anything Floyd did as a boxer. Floyd, because he beat Canelo, Trump became president and beat Hillary. Like, I really don't get it. But make sure you use my link in the description to get TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is an awesome browser extension, the #1 tube tool for us YouTubers. I've been using it for years. I continue to use it for videos like this. It takes money to make money. Always invest in yourself, invest in your brand. If you're on YouTube as a creator and you upload, the possibilities are endless, but the most important thing is you got to get your content in front of people. The best way to do that is to put out content, but also optimize that content. So use TubeBuddy. Link in the description. Let me know in the comment section if you could figure this mystery out. The mystery of Jim Lampley, how he's trying to compare Trump's presidency to Floyd Mayweather. When I saw that and I read it, I was like, this is unbelievable. So definitely not looking forward to Jim Lampley. This is why I didn't make a video about his return, because I don't give a